Is your mind kind of annoying, or do you deal with intrusive thoughts or worries, or do you have visions of catastrophes happening? Maybe you get hit with a lot of what ifs, like what if my daughter gets in a car crash, or what if I said something offensive at the party? Now, it's really common to deal with difficult thoughts, but if we don't have the right strategies to manage them, they can get out of hand. And that's because our brain is kind of like a 2-year-old. What we give attention to gets louder. So just like if a 2-year-old says a naughty word and everyone laughs, she'll say it again. But when mom or dad gets serious and say like, you have to stop that, then she knows that she has all the power and she says it more and more. The more upset you get, the more she thinks it's funny. Now, many of us engage in 4 unhelpful strategies to deal with unwanted thoughts. When we try not to think about something worrisome, that accidentally sends a message to our brains that worry is actually dangerous. So, our brain worries more. This is the classic don't think about a pink elephant scenario. The more you try to suppress a thought, the louder it becomes. What we pay attention to, we get more of. That's how the brain works. When we believe an intrusive thought, our brain makes it even louder. So, for example, if you're driving and you have a thought like, oh, what if I drifted into oncoming traffic and caused a crash? If you believe that thought, if you believe that that thought means something about you, that it means that you're dangerous, maybe then you avoid driving. And the more you avoid driving, the more your brain learns that the thought, what if I cause a crash, is dangerous. So the brain makes that thought louder because what we pay attention to, we get more of. When we argue with a thought, as in, oh, did I hurt Kathy's feelings last night? No, I didn't. Well, maybe I did, but it's her fault anyway. But what I said wasn't that offensive, was it? Well, I'm a good person, but nobody likes me. I must be a bad person. And when we go down like that rabbit hole of arguing with our thoughts, they also gain more power over us, and we end up distracted from actually living the life we care about. Because what we pay attention to, we get more of. And when we try to distract ourselves with screens or drama or drugs or whatever, suddenly all the effort to avoid those thoughts takes away our power to live the life we care about, a life connected to others and engaged in a purposeful direction. So this one's a little bit counterintuitive because when we avoid something because it seems scary, that tells our brain that that thought is dangerous, and what we avoid, we get more of. So, getting sucked into trying to stop thinking something, believing all our thoughts, avoiding our thoughts, or arguing with our thoughts all take us down a pathway where we spend so much energy wrapped up in our own head that we can't pay attention to living the life that we care about. Worry thoughts are going to come. Intrusive thoughts are going to come. So what can we do with them instead? Acceptance and commitment therapy has a solution. It's called cognitive defusion. And that's just a fancy word for creating some space between yourself and your thoughts. We can allow the thoughts to be present without needing to agree, disagree, or suppress those thoughts. And I've got a handful of videos on this topic, which I'll link in the description. But today I'm going to teach you some phrases that may help you let go of the struggle with those thoughts. So the goal here is we are going to notice the thought, acknowledge it, and then go back to the present moment. Well, let me give you some examples of how to do that. So here's the first one. So here's a common thought for people who have panic attacks. They think, what if this panic attack is a heart attack? Now, you could intentionally say, hello, mind. I'm noticing that you're worrying me again. We'll see what happens. And then you'll just acknowledge that thought and then go back to the present moment. Now, you might be wondering, why don't I just tell my mind, of course not. It's not a heart attack. This isn't a heart attack. Everything will be fine. I mean, that's basically what traditional CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, does. You notice your thought, you challenge it, and you replace it with a more rational thought. And honestly, CBT is great for a lot of types of thinking. Like, what if everyone hates me? Well, rationally, not everyone hates me. Some people like me and some people hate me. So rational thinking can be helpful for some people in some situations. It's great. I'm not going to bash on CBT. CBT is great. But if you've ever been stuck in worries or intrusive thoughts, you know that your brain's going to come up with a million never-ending arguments or reasons why you can't know that for certain. So it might be like, oh, well, most panic attacks aren't heart attacks. But what if this time is the one? No, it's not. See, look, I'm calming down. I can breathe. But what if this is the one? You can't know that for sure. And then you end up doing this thing with your brain. So what you've got to do is ask yourself, has this worked for you? Has it worked for you to argue with your thoughts? Has that helped you feel calm, present, and purposeful? I think a lot of times people do this with uncertainty. If you feel uncertain about something, do you spend an endless amount of energy trying to get certainty? Or have you gotten sucked into kind of this endless back and forth? If you find that you get stuck in an endless back and forth, then using defusion might be a more helpful approach. So when you're able to say, maybe, maybe not, or I can't control a panic attack, so we'll just let it pass, you can kind of escape the tyranny of like fighting against an invisible monster. Here's another example. Let's see if we can do some more examples. So here's phrase number 2. So you have the thought, what if my daughter gets in a car crash? Your response to this can be, if I believe this thought, how will it help me? Will it get me closer to living the life that I want? Now, of course, your brain is going to come up with various worries about things that possibly could happen. But we can just question, is believing this thought going to help me live a meaningful life? If I spend all day worrying about my daughter, will that help me live a good life? Or if I call my daughter over and over again, checking on her, will that improve our relationship? Will that make her actually a safer driver? Usually the answer is no. Believing these thoughts won't help you live the life you care about. So we notice the thought, we acknowledge it, and we shift our attention back to the present moment. And remember, what we pay attention to, we get more of. So if we can shift our attention away from these uncertain thoughts or these worry thoughts, we can tell our brain that's what's really important is what I'm doing here and now. In the long run, this is going to help decrease the intensity and frequency of these worry thoughts and these intrusive thoughts. Okay, here's another one. Let's do the example of like, what if I get fired from my job? What if I can't find another one? What if my wife leaves me? What if I'm miserable forever? This one we're going to call name the story. Say, there's the blank story again. I'm not surprised it showed up. So you could say, oh, there's the hopeless story again. There's the catastrophe story again. There's the I'm unlovable story. There's the I'm a helpless victim story again. So make a name for this story that keeps popping up for you. There's something about naming it that takes away a little bit of its power. And then you ask yourself, does this story help me? If not, I'm going to shift my attention back to my work. And you shift your attention back to the thing you were doing before the thought popped up. Okay, here's another example of a phrase. So we'll use a worry thought like, what if people don't like me? Or what if I embarrass myself? Or what if I get sick? So you could spend a lot of time arguing with these thoughts, suppressing your thoughts, distracting yourself from these thoughts, or believing these thoughts, and that's going to distract you from your life purpose. So instead, you say, maybe my mind is right. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. And then you go back and shift your attention back to what you were doing before the thought popped up. Here's another phrase. So if you had a worry like, oh, what if things don't go as planned? You could say to your mind, oh, there you go again, mind. You sure are good at worrying. And then you bring your mind back to what you were doing. What if I feel anxious today at work and I can't think? Whew, thank you, mind. You sure are doing a good job at worrying me today. We'll see what happens. It's normal for these thoughts to come and go. It's normal for them to come back and try to annoy you. The goal is to just notice them and then shift your attention back to what matters most, which is the present moment, what you were working on, or what you really care about. And as you do this, you'll find that you don't get stuck in these internal conversations with anxious thoughts. And that's why it's called acceptance and commitment therapy. We just accept our thoughts and feelings as existing, but we commit to taking action in line with our values. And it helps people live a more rich and meaningful life. So as you develop these defusion skills, you'll stop fueling the cycle of struggle or avoidance. And little by little, your mind will learn that these thoughts aren't so important. They'll probably come less often, and they just won't bother you so much. If you'd like to learn more about how to manage thoughts and emotions, I've got a couple of courses that are helpful. I teach an emotion processing course where you'll learn 30 skills to work through and resolve difficult thoughts and emotions in a sustainable way. This is not a coping skills and mindfulness course. It's a research-backed course that will change how you approach emotions so that you can regain your sense of self. And you can buy that course separately or part of a monthly membership. And then I've also collaborated with 2 experts to build courses. Dr. Kat Green, who specializes in OCD, has an excellent course on intrusive thoughts, and Dr. Nick Wignall has a great course on how to stop worrying that actually works. And you can find both of those courses on my website. I'll put the links in the description as well. So thank you for being here, and take care.